Chug's 1.0 was great, and I love it. I really do find that concept like near and dear to my heart, but I think this one brings it full circle.
You're listening to Pancon Podcast. I'm Nick Jiménez. Petey the dog is not here, but Michael Beltran is.
We just lost so many listeners.
We did. At least 5 of the 22. So we are recording this episode from Chug's. You haven't heard an episode recorded from Chug's in quite some time. Chug's, for those of you who are new around these parts, is our host, Chef Michael Beltran, and also, by the way, 8th grade basketball MVP, Michael Beltran's Cuban-American diner. The way that he's described it in the past is if a Cuban ventanita and an American diner had a baby, it might be Chug's. I don't know if you still feel like that's a good description.
We're here.
That doesn't really answer the question, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We are here in any case. So we're recording this one, just you and me, to talk about this. This place is going to open at some point in the very near future.
Yeah.
We're not going to put a date on it.
Yeah, no.
But
I mean, like, very near.
Very near. Like inside of 30 days.
Inside of
maybe
14 days.
Okay, yeah, sure. So very near. Today is August 23rd, 2021. And the last time I was in here, this place was basically a construction site, and now it is not. So I'll let you tell us where we're starting the conversation.
There's so many places to start. This is probably the highest stress episode we've ever had.
Well, that you've ever had.
Sure. Yeah, you're right. I don't produce myself, so I can imagine how your stress levels would be pretty high.
No, I'm just saying that if the stress is because of where things are with Chug's, that's not, like, I'm not a part of that. Like, you're the one experiencing the stress.
Sure.
This, for me, is another episode.
That's true.
I just don't want to lump myself in with all the people who are stressed out about Chug's.
That's fine. I mean, this, like you said, I don't know, when was the last time you were in here? Probably like 4 or 5 months ago?
Yeah, like, there wasn't, like, no countertops.
Rubble.
Definitely no furniture. Like, none of the booths were in yet. You still had the wrong lamps.
Oh, the wrong lamps.
Yeah, the big ones.
Man, I can tell you that Ariat was like the first, and it was put together with like duct tape and like charcoal, pretty much. Like, it's incredible that place got open. And the Nave, the deal was a little different there. Somebody built it, to which I'm still paying the price for. But this is the first time I've designed the whole thing from top to bottom. You know, like where pipes go, where lights go, where plants go.
Let's just, for the person who might be new, let's very quickly bring him up to speed. So what was Chug's before?
So Chug started as a pop-up. I was actually in New York with Pastelito Papi. And my partner Andrew calls me and he was like, you know, the space. And I used to come to that space all the time. It's a good little breakfast spot. The space became available. You know, the landlords were like friends with the landlords. And they were like, we want to know if we want to do a pop-up there. I said, sure, fuck it. I mean, we needed a home for Pastelito Papi, really, was the initial thought. And so I said, sure. And then, you know, there was a kitchen. And I was like, I can do some food here. In like the most stubborn fashion that I operate. I was like, yeah, 22 items that I stuck on that fucking menu.
In a kitchen that was what size?
A shoebox. Yeah. It's pretty much a fucking shoebox. It was a 4-burner, a fryer, and I put in a 24-inch flat top and small pizza prep table. And, I mean, you know, the first, like, 2 weeks of Chug's were fucking ferocious. Mm-hmm. I did not expect that kind of response. It's amazing. Super grateful. Feels still incredibly blessed to this day. Like, it was just like 650 square feet, tiny little thing. We had 8 seats indoors and we had 40 outside.
Yeah.
And it was great to see. It was a lot of work. But after a couple months, the landlords, you know, they were trying to do things with this building that they couldn't end up doing, I believe. So then they asked us if we would like to stay long term. So then that was kind of the beginning of the process. People don't ever understand, like, the beginning of the deal and the lease process is lengthy. Mm-hmm. Like, when you release that you're opening something, it has nothing to do with like what just happened at that moment. It has everything to do with happened a year previous or even 2 years previous. You know, they just released information that we're opening at the World Center for our French-Cuban brasserie. I mean, we've been working on that deal for 2+ years. So then we started that process. Then it was like thinking about, because, you know, there was a clothing store on the other side of Chug's, and they were leaving. They had decided to not renew their lease. And I was like, you know, we just got to make this fucking thing bigger. It just, you know, to make money, it needed to be bigger with kind of like what Chug's was.
Yeah.
So started planning. Then the pandemic happened. So Chug's actually ended up staying open longer as a pop-up. It was only supposed to stay open for a year. It ended up staying open for like 1 year and 7 months.
Part of that time as like a sort of bodega,
grab and go. I mean, Chug's was like, it was great for the people of Coconut Grove. And a lot of people of Miami during the pandemic. And for us too. You know, we had an opportunity to highlight Devon's ice cream, more of her sweets, her bread work. You know, and continue doing our part for what I thought really Chug stood for, which was like a very homey place for the community as a whole. And when I say the community, I mean Coconut Grove, Miami, whatever. And that lasted until like the building really just couldn't take it anymore. I mean, the building was like falling apart. And when I say falling apart, like the plumbing needed to be replaced. The electrical was like just didn't work. And I decided to close sooner than I wanted to, because the landlords had to know that they were like put on notice. Like, we got to close. There's things that need to happen on their end for us to close. So then we closed. And by that time, I'd already kind of like etched out the space. We had worked with an engineer, which that was my first time working with like an architect engineer. And man, let me tell you, I learned so much. For anyone out there that's opening a restaurant, not all architect engineers are created equal. And they do not know what it takes to open up a fucking restaurant or even operate one. They put outlets in the wrong places, at the wrong heights, wrong visibility levels. Just like, it's just fucking brutal. So that taught me a lot. I had to go back and change a lot of shit. And just thinking like, an architect, they know. They do not know. They have no fucking idea. Like the way a door swings open, where the walk-in's located, how big the walk-in is, how wide the kitchen should be. And that leads into like actual like demolition, breaking ground. And then again, you think it again, like, oh, this is like a super serious like construction company. They should know all the things. They don't. So, I mean, I was here pretty much, whether it was for 1 hour or 6 hours a day during the construction process, throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, they don't catch things that we catch because I'm a restaurant person.
Yeah, they don't have that context.
Right. Even though they build a fuck ton of restaurants. Right. And I'm not saying that these people are bad at their job. They just don't know.
No, and I'm sure that it's also that there are a lot of people who make those assumptions that you maybe made at the beginning but don't stick around long enough to realize they're wrong. So if they never have that feedback loop with their other clients, when they come to you, it's as if they had been building whatever else.
This episode of Pancom Podcast is brought to you by
Pancom Podcast, September 8th. Maybe there won't be tickets available by the time you hear this.
Oof.
But September 8th at Maxwell Brothers Clothing Store, which is a pizzeria brew pub.
Get them while they're fucking hot. These things are red fucking hot.
September 8th at Maxwell Brothers Clothing Store. We are doing a live podcast, meaning we will have an audience. You can get tickets to watch 8th grade basketball MVP Michael Beltrán in discussion, in conversation with brewer and restaurateur John Falco,
Falco's like our guest?
Him and Peter Santamaria.
Peter, now that is a fucking just a gem of a human. Falco, we could do without, but it's fine.
It's his place. Couldn't get around it.
We'll let him in.
Yeah. I'm looking for Falco claims that he will be making his own t-shirt cannon that ideally will also shoot pastelitos.
I mean, the t-shirt cannon thing, I've been a proponent for a long time.
But I don't know if you always wanted Falco to manufacture one.
Well, him manufacturing anything gives me anxiety, but a lot of things do.
I mean,
obviously.
listen, if I trust anybody with it, it's him. He was in weapons.
It's gonna be Falco?
He was in weapons intelligence. He's the guy.
I guess you're right.
He's the guy for this. If there's one thing I trust Falco with, it's making a T-shirt cannon.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's what he was in intelligence. I think that was the deal.
Okay.
Maybe also other things.
We'll see.
I don't know, man. There will also be other things happening. We are raffling barware from Steelite. And there will, barring some kind of thing, but the plan is that you won't have to touch any tables. There will be no Mike Beltran table touch.
Right.
There will be a Mario Obregon rap about the food.
This is fascinating.
So
I can't wait to. I mean, I saw what he did with black beans, and I am fucking just.
I kind of want that. I want, instead of a rap, I just want like all the lights to go down and a spotlight go on Mario.
Over Mario.
And it just be him like kind of talking contemplatively.
Yeah, about black beans.
Yeah, well, let's tell people what's going to be on the menu for this event.
What is going to be on this menu?
I'll tell you the menu.
No, I got it.
Okay.
So we're doing mojo garlic rolls.
Yep.
Right? That's one of the things you eat. Then you have
that's what you do with it, yeah.
Yeah. Then for the main, we have like a 3-parter, right? We're doing a what we call Noche Buena calzone, right? That's what we're doing.
Yep.
Maduros, lechon asado. There's some ricotta. There's some other
Mojo onions.
Mojo onions.
I think was the idea. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. We're doing pizzalitos. So it's Pastelitos and Pizza had a baby.
Right.
And Pastelito Papi is going to make that baby for you.
Oof.
And then we're doing
He's going to put that baby in you?
Take it easy, killer. Take it easy. This is a kid's show. We're good for the kids.
Oh, is that what this is?
Yeah.
Sorry,
and then
kids.
we're doing an avocado lyonnaise. So it's an avocado salad with frisee, bacon lardons, hard-boiled egg, soft-boiled egg, green goddess dressing. And then for dessert, his team has a couple of things that they're working on that I find fascinating. I don't know if we're allowed to say this, but he's working on this incredible new ice cream concept called Crybaby.
It's on Instagram already.
Is it? It exists? Cool, so I could talk about it. It's called Crybaby. And Falco, myself, and his chef hatched up some pretty cool ideas that I think we're going to test in the next week or so. So, one of them was like a beer float, which was cool. This is news to Nick. As he looks at me very confused.
That's okay. That's good.
And then the other one was a
still doing the whey caramel or no?
Yeah, the other one was it's an ice cream sandwich.
Okay.
With whey caramel in it, coconut, ice cream. Are you okay?
What are you doing?
I don't know. And some other stuff. And it was the conversation was fast and furious, but it was very exciting since I'm a big fan of ice cream sandwiches and floats.
Very good.
So I think it's going to be a good time. I would recommend buying a ticket, obviously.
Yep. So the ticket gets you the dinner.
Right.
Gets you a seat in the audience for this podcast while you're having that dinner.
Which I'm sorry about.
Apologies to everyone.
Right.
Gets you a cigar.
Right.
Thanks to Aganorsa Leaf for hooking us up on that front. They will be providing the cigars. Gets you at least one entry in this raffle of barware. A lot of nice stuff.
Woo!
There's going to be there's going to be stuff.
Can't wait.
Happening.
You get a Yari. You get a Yari. You get a Yari.
And then I don't know what we'll do exactly, but I know that we want to.
Well, but I mean, come on, this gets you a live performance by Mario Obregon, which is, I mean, that guy is riding his Peloton every day. He looks great. He's ready to rap. I mean, he's gonna kill it.
Oh man, it's gonna be huge.
Huge.
Man, it's been so long since we heard one of those, huh?
It's the same all the time.
Huge. But no, and then I was going to say I don't think that we know exactly what we're going to do, but I do want to bring something into this event that helps to raise money for recharging Cuban cell phones through Cuba Decide. We have thrown around a few ideas about, what that might look like. I'm thinking that so Peter Santamaria has agreed to contribute at least one piece of his that we might auction off.
Oh, that's cool.
Or raffle off or something.
Yeah, that's great.
And then I think maybe what we'll do with the Steelite thing is if you have a ticket, you will have an entry into that raffle, but we'll let people spend money for extra entries and send that this way.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, we're also working on a T-shirt thing for that as well.
Yeah.
That I get the sample T-shirt tomorrow. I'm gonna wear it on the show. I'll probably wear it to the show too on the 8th.
Yeah.
And all the proceeds go to that.
Yeah.
So the shirt will be expensive not because I want the money, but because I want it to go to a good place.
Yeah.
Are we done here?
Back to the show.
I asked my GC, which is actually a great guy. His name is James. I was like, how often when you build a restaurant are the owners there? And they're like, oh, no. Very, very few times. I'm like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
And those owners end up, I'm sure, with things that they're frustrated.
Yeah, but the owners aren't operating usually.
Right.
It's not like a lot of people that we know, that I know, they're owner-operators. They know all, every nook and cranny. Mm. A lot of people who dump money into restaurants are just dumping money into restaurants, and they don't know how to operate said restaurant. So, it was definitely a learning process for me. I learned a fuck ton, and I'm grateful for that.
So we're here now.
Yeah, we're standing in this with the fucked up bottom of the booth. I know you can't hear it.
Oh, they can hear it.
Yeah, but that fucked up bottom of the booth that they were supposed to fucking fix.
Are they all like that, or
no?
Just this one?
This is the first one I sat in that still has this thing. So just to give people context, we're sitting in a booth.
Yep.
The base of the booth has a small little silver thing that goes over
a plate.
Yeah, like a plate, and then it's actually got double-sided tape on the bottom of it, so it sticks to the base.
Yep.
And they were just like, "Fuck it, we don't want to do that one.
We're over the tape."
Yeah, fuck them. They're actually going to be back next week, so they're going to fix it.
Yeah. So, tell me about what Chug's over the course of Chug's 1.0. What did you learn about what Chug's was? Right, because you maybe had an idea of what it was at the beginning, and then it evolved, and then
we had this conversation yesterday. Actually, so people have context. Nick actually edits all of our menus.
Okay.
It's true. You edit all of our menus.
Yeah, it's a new development.
It's been happening for a little while now.
I have always edited your menus as a personal hobby, and then I would text you corrections.
Good. Yeah.
It's more recent that every time there's a new menu, I get emails of menus.
Right. So we were discussing through text yesterday, and I asked you for your feedback. What do you surmise from the menu, and what was it that you said?
If I remember correctly, I said I thought it was tight in the sense of that it didn't feel like it meandered. It had a very sort of cohesive identity from top to bottom. That there was a good balance of sort of tradition or conventional dishes, but with a little twist, rather than, for example, this is our crazy dish and this is our super straightforward thing. Throughout from top to bottom, it feels like, okay, every single dish is consistent with what this restaurant is.
Correct. I think
you can offer some examples of that, because people without reference, that might sound.
Can you
vague.
just give me an example? Because
Sure, I'll give you an example. So the masitas, for example, with fufu, and that's topped with, I forget what,
caramelized mojo onions.
Right, exactly. Even that on its own. You wouldn't necessarily, you'd have maybe mojo onions, but you wouldn't have them caramelized.
Sure.
Typically. That's one little touch, and I'm sure there's other things about that dish. I'm sure there are things about the fufu itself. I'm sure there's stuff.
No, it's pretty simple in nature.
No, but even just...
complex in execution.
Sure.
Simple in nature, though.
Sure.
It's literally 3 ingredients. It's fufu, masitas, and then the... That dish I've been thinking about for a long time, because it's actually a play off the French dish rillons, which is... just pork belly that's slowly cooked in pork fat, and then when it's pseudo crispy, then they just leave it in the pork fat and they let it solidify.
And that's what you're doing here.
Somewhat.
Okay, but even that,
Pretty close.
That's what I mean, though. Is like aside from the caramelized onions, like that's not the same masita that you would get at any Cuban restaurant that you
Sure,
order.
it's also with pork belly as
Right.
opposed to like a shoulder.
So there's all those
butt.
things,
Right.
and then even with the, because like we said, it's Cuban restaurant, American diner, have a baby. There's the tamarind ketchup on the meatloaf,
Right.
like even that little touch, right? So it's not like, oh, here's our super conventional. You've had this meatloaf a million times, and then next to it is some dish that's like off the wall weird. It's every dish feels like it belongs here.
This menu has like, because we've been doing food demos for the last few days, so I'm like working through my feelings on everything, and it's like every dish feels like we've thought about it a lot. We just need to work on like the execution of it. That one in particular is on my shit list right now.
The meatloaf?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like the meatloaf is a play on pulpeta, right? It's got chorizo in it. It's got veal, beef. It's whipped with chicken livers and stuff. Like I approach it like a French pate, but then kind of like Cuban pulpeta. But if you put that on the menu, no one's going to order it. I mean, even as meatloaf, I think it's going to be a tough sell. So, I don't know. Like, I wanted the menu to flow as, like, there's options for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, there's a good mix.
And there's definitely that.
I think, because I thought about, like, your comment, not in a negative way, just I thought about it a lot. And it's like, Chug's 1.0 wasn't capable of a ton.
Right.
Because of like the limitations of the space. And this one has a ton of limitations too. I built a super tight kitchen with a lot of firepower by saying like there's a lot of equipment in there, but it's tight.
Yeah.
So, the limitations are different, but I still feel like we weren't capable of doing a lot previously. And then now something that I wanted to do was, build a super sexy dining room that was still not over the top, but approachable, cool. I mean, like, I look around this room, and I'm super proud of what we've done here. But, see that? You love that, right? Yeah. Fucking A, I'm going to blow my brains out. But, it's not over the top, right? Like, there's no smoke and mirrors here. There's a large bar.
Yeah.
But the biggest addition now is of booze. We brought in a guy named Tom Walker.
Well, but sorry, let's just to round out the thing from before. The question was, from the time that Chug's first opened,
sure,
to when it closed as a pop-up, did your understanding of what you were trying to accomplish with it change? And then when you got to the end there, did you already have this in your head? I
think that this was like the original vision from day one.
Okay.
We just weren't really capable of doing that.
Okay.
So that's why Chug's was kind of boiled down to like a breakfast and lunch concept.
Okay.
Because I wasn't able to do all the things that I wanted to do.
So it wasn't that doing the pop-up brought you to this vision.
I think it just showed me the capability of what we're kind of like what we can do. I mean, those days at Chug's that we would do 500 people out of a 650 square foot space. But now we're much better equipped to do 500 people and execute in a better fashion, more efficiently, with a better product.
Okay. So, sorry, then you were talking about booze and Todd.
Right, so...
A different booze Todd.
Tom.
Oh, Tom.
Tom
Walker. I thought it was Todd.
No.
Got it.
We got Todd still
I thought
here.
there were two booze Todds. I was very excited about that.
There's Todd and Tom.
Okay, got it. That's still
TNT.
Oh, man.
I know.
It's TNT time.
TNT time. So, we employed a gentleman named Tom Walker. He's got a great resume. He's a great human. And he's brought a lot to this concept from a beverage side. We have, I think, 6 by the glass wines, and I think we have 14 cocktails all day. And they've all been exceptional. And I think that's really what Chug's was missing forever. Because I've always envisioned this food with cocktails and eating this food late. I mean, it's a diner.
Yeah.
I envision eating at a diner at midnight. I envision eating at a diner at 9 o'clock at night, at 10 o'clock at night. And the capability of having a great cocktail along with that really rounds out the whole concept. Yeah. It really brings it full circle. And, that was what we were missing. And Tom, I think, has been with us now for almost 2 months, and he hit the ground running. And the cocktail menu is really, really, really impressive. From a guava gimlet to Benny's daiquiri to an improved carajillo is what he likes to call it. I think they're all delicious, and I think that they go with the food so well, which is, for me, a lot of times where I think cocktails miss the mark. It's like they're just making cocktails, and they're not making cocktails for the concept.
Yeah.
And I think here we've really executed a menu that pairs with the concept super well. And not just that this could be a scene at nighttime. I mean, it could be great.
100%.
I mean, I'd want to sit here and have a cocktail and eat a Cuban sandwich or a croqueta or, bocadito spread with Cuban crackers.
Yeah, it's a very, end your night kind of spot.
So, as it stands right now, we'll be open Friday and Saturday till 2 in the morning. Every other day, the bar will be open till midnight. And the kitchen will close at 10. But we'll still have a couple late night snacks that people can munch on. But it's really, I think that's what this concept was meant to be forever. And I think now we're just seeing it through.
Yeah.
Chug's 1.0 was great, and I love it. I really do find that concept near and dear to my heart, but I think this one brings it full circle, which is great to see.
Yeah. Let's dive a little more into the food. Because we've mentioned maybe 2 things.
Right.
So, if you had to point to, let's again, for people who have not been exposed to Chug's 1.0,
right?
Sort of overview of what you might find on that menu.
1.0 or 2.0?
1.0, so that we can give people a sense of where you're coming from to.
So a couple of changes. Chug's 1.0 had 6 different variations of the frita,
okay,
which we're not going to do this time.
Yeah.
We have one frita that's I think rivals the burger, double patty, Swiss cheese, a mojo ketchup. Instead of doing traditional papitas, we're doing yuquitas.
This is another point of contention.
Yeah, another point of contention, which are yuca papitas, as Nick likes to put it. And
listen, that's how it was on the menu. It was on the menu 2 different ways.
Okay.
So I was just saying, if you're going to go with one of these.
Yeah. I mean, we created a word.
You didn't create a word. Yuquita is a word.
Yuquita is a word.
Yuquita is a word, but it's usually referring to yuca fries. Yuca, like yuca frita. Peruvians call yuca frita that we would just dip in mojo, yuquita.
Okay.
It's not your fault.
No, I mean, I'm not saying it's my fault.
Because even papita refers to 3 different things.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Papitas are chips and they're fries and they're the shoestring things. And
anyways, we've abandoned the traditional papita, and our frita and our breakfast sandwich now come with
yucapitas.
Yuquitas, right?
Yucapita.
Yeah, I mean, we've added some really some things that I find pretty incredible, fritura de malanga, but with crab salad on top. We added salmon rillette, which is basically just salmon dip with fried Cuban crackers. We're doing rapita our way, which is the fried crispy rice with lechon asado on top and guava barbecue sauce. I love the appetizer section of our menu.
Yeah,
we've done we added medianoche pierogies, which is basically everything that's in a medianoche inside of a pierogi. For people who don't know what a pierogi is, it's basically a dumpling that's blanched and then seared on the flat top, and it comes with usually sour cream. We're serving it with a mustard sour cream deliciousness.
Polish dumpling.
Yeah. And Polish.
I think
yeah,
so. Yeah.
Polish. It's usually just potatoes and cheese on the inside.
Huge in Pittsburgh.
Is it big in Pittsburgh?
Oh man, Pittsburgh loves pierogies.
Really?
Yeah. You go to a Pirates game, a lot of pierogies.
At a Pirates game?
Pittsburgh Pirates.
Interesting.
Oh yeah. That's the.
But at a game, pierogies?
Yeah, well, they have a big restaurant in the stadium, and pierogies are a big thing. If you're in a sit-down situation in the stadium, you get a thing of pierogies.
Interesting.
Oh, there's pierogies everywhere.
Yeah. our breakfast sandwich is going to be served all day. Taylor ham, American cheese, mayo, yuca papitas, and a sunny side up egg. And then on the entree side, we added like camarón enchilado. But the sofrito has gochujang in it. It's so delicious. Crispy garlic on top, just white rice. We have pan roasted snapper with garlic butter, vegetable cabeche. I just really feel like this is a well-rounded restaurant.
Yeah.
Our pan con mité is more like a roast beef than it is like a pan con mité, but that's fine because I'm not a huge fan of like palomilla steak. And I always find it tough.
Okay.
And it's just like small. The minuta is a situation that's going to be served all day also. I just find it like we nailed all the corners. And when you have 2 years to work on a menu and still don't really have a menu because it's still always like, how my brain works is always like in flux. Tomorrow the menu goes to print for the next 120 days. And that gives me incredible amounts of anxiety. Just like insurmountable amounts of anxiety.
Yeah.
So we're here.
So we mentioned Tom on the beverage side.
Sure.
Who'd you bring in on the food side?
Her name is Monica Dominguez, and she came from Q. She's also Cuban. She's incredibly talented, very hardworking, and I think it's taken her a little bit of time to feel comfortable with the concept because it's not like just Cuban food. Mm-hmm. And it's also like a very interesting take on Cuban food and just overall like the well-rounded concept. But I think that she's done great work. I'm incredibly lucky that she wanted this job.
So if somebody's eating here or looking over the menu or whatever it might be, where would you say her stamps?
Her touches are?
Yeah.
The frituras, for sure. That was all her. The rapita is definitely all her. Mm. The change of the sofrito, like tomato base for the camarón enchilado, definitely all her. Her presence is definitely strong throughout the menu.
Yeah.
You're not going to find her on the meatloaf dish. That's for sure.
She's not a meatloaf person like you.
No. But I feel like over time, she'll continue to develop an understanding of the concept. And when we go to print a second menu, I think you'll see a little more of that too.
Sure. Yeah.
Because also the first menu, there's a couple reasons why I decided to go with the menu for 120 days. I just couldn't accept building this place and then not having like a beautiful menu on the table. Because like where we're sitting, as we're sitting, there will be a menu on every table.
Right.
So there was like 3 options, and the other 2 I found very ugly. And I was like, the most beautiful one, it's like it was expensive. And I was like, we got to run this menu for at least 4 months for it to make any sense. So that's why we made that call. It was a tougher decision. A lot of people told me not to do it, but I'm going to roll the fucking dice.
I got to tell you, that's a very Mike Beltran way to make that decision. I'm committed to this menu for 4 months because I wanted the nice paper.
It's not just paper. It's the way, like, I don't know. There's when you build the thing, so many things come into account. It's like these sconces that are everywhere right now.
Yeah,
I had them change.
No, right. But I'm saying that the sconces aren't why you're committed to the menu.
But
I'm saying, like, you're talking about how the menu is giving you anxiety being committed to it for 120 days.
Yeah.
And it's because in order for the expense of the menu itself to make sense, you had to commit to it for that long. It's a very Mike Beltran thing to do.
Why is that a very Mike Beltran thing?
It is. Because
it's
not a bad thing.
It ties into everything.
I get it. It's not a bad thing. I think that's part of why, that's part of why it works. But it's a very Mike Beltran thing.
All right, I'll take it.
It's also a Mike Beltran thing to feel anxiety about it.
Oh, man, so much anxiety. I have so much anxiety right now, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's a good thing I didn't make coffee. It'd be poops, too.
Oh, poops and coffee.
Yeah, poops and anxiety.
Poops and anxiety.
Okay. So that's the food and that's the booze. Talk a bit about
the coffee.
Let's talk about the coffee then. Sure.
Actually, the coffee gives me a lot of anxiety.
Does it really?
Yeah.
How so?
I mean, it's Cuban coffee.
Oh, you just mean physically it affects you that way? Or
No. I'm saying that, okay, so for example, Counterculture is our roaster.
Yeah.
They're a carryover from Chug's 1.0.
Yeah.
There was a lot of debate whether we would go with Counterculture again. Not because them as a company are great or, you know, the people who represent them, they're actually incredible, like very supportive or whatever. But we were toying with the fact of going with a more Miami brand. And they were actually also great. But we ended up going with Counterculture at the end. And the way they recommend to pull their coffee is a certain way that we just didn't agree with. Because it just doesn't lend itself to Cuban coffee.
Right. So
this was like, it wasn't like a debate, but it was a lot of back and forth. The way we do our espumita is not like traditional Cuban coffee. So that's also going to be like a hard curveball.
But it's the same coffee that you'd been doing before. So for the regulars...
Yes and no.
Okay.
And the reason why I say no is because now we have a lot more firepower to make it fucking great. I think before it was really good.
No, what I mean, though, is like if you liked it before, you'll like it now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
My hope is that you like it more now.
Right, but it's not like you have to start from zero selling people on your coffee.
Yeah. I mean, the Chugs team previously, Casey in specific, just like they really fine-tuned the coffee program. But it's now then training the coffee program. So the reason why I bring that up is because of the kind of volume that I hope to do here. It was brought to me that maybe we should get a super automatic machine. You know what a super automatic machine is?
I don't.
Basically, it's like, you know, have you ever seen those commercial Nespresso machines? That you basically go up to it, you press like macchiato, it makes you a macchiato.
Right.
Those kind of suck. But they exist, and they're very, very, very easy to use. Like, you just press a button, boom, you got a fucking...
Yeah.
You got a thing. It's right there, it's done. I decided to not go with that. I went with... It's awesome, right? Every time you hit that little thing, isn't it great? Yeah, that one. It's fucking incredible.
It's a symbol.
Oh. So, I decided to not go with that because I thought it would hurt the overall feel and vibe of the restaurant.
Okay.
Much more than just efficiency, which is like very counterintuitive to how I always think. But I just felt like it would hurt the restaurant. Like the perception, the way the coffee felt, the way it tasted. I just didn't think that it would be executed the same way.
Yeah.
So we went with beautiful coffee machine. It's like, I forget what it's called now, but it was fucking expensive and it's great. But now you have to train humans how to make coffee your weight. They could be baristas elsewhere. This is going to be completely different.
Yeah. So,
you know, that it also gives me a lot of anxiety on that end too.
Yeah. All right.
So,
yeah, all the training.
The human element of restaurants is huge.
No, and especially in a concept like this one that's so unlike other things.
Well, it's a restaurant within a restaurant, right? I mean, you have, in one part of the restaurant, you have this like grab and go thing that's set up to, people come in, they want to get a sandwich, they want to get a coffee, they want to get a Rebirth Elixir, which will be back. That's a carryover for 1.0 also. Or they want to get a fresh squeezed orange juice. It's already going to be bottled and ready to go. Like, that's all going to be available. So essentially, it's a restaurant within the restaurant. Because if you want to come and you want to sit down and you want to dine, that's also available.
Oh, I'm even just talking about the training of the making the product, whether it's training people to make the coffee or, and what I mean by unlike other things is you can come in, like you said, you can be a barista elsewhere, but this is not the same coffee. And you can have made masitas in 20 other places. This is not the same masita.
Correct.
So talk a bit more. You touched on this a few times earlier, but about what the place looks like and what you're going for here, because this is the first time you've designed something with at this level of specificity yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I got super fortunate that Matt Kushner introduced me to Jessica Acosta, which is our project manager / designer. And there was a time, I would say a year ago, was incredibly overwhelmed with like, so what chair do you want to use? And I'm like, oh, what? Yeah. They give you a bunch of options, and I don't like any of them. And then like, what type of wood do you want to use for the roof or for the ceiling? For the sconces, like, what do you want the lights to look like? What do you want the bulbs over? And I'm just like, this is not my realm of things.
Right.
So Jess came into the picture, and she's incredible, great to work with. She has a great eye for design and like simplicity. And I was like, listen, we're looking for simple but clean. You know, like, I want it to look a certain way and feel a certain way, but I don't want it to feel stuffy.
Right.
And she pretty much got that real, like, very quickly. And, you know, we worked through a bunch of things. I mean, just like simply like these booths. I had to remake these booths twice. And they're still not like exactly how I wanted them.
What about them?
The way that the rivets are on the top, like, I don't love.
Okay.
But I had them remake it twice, and at this point I was like, I mean, you guys just don't fucking get it, so we're just gonna live here. We're gonna be okay with this, but I can guarantee you I'm gonna ask you to do this again. You know, these tables too, like, this company is from Italy, and then like they didn't necessarily like do this like out the like silver stripe on the end, but I thought it was very diner-ish.
For sure.
Diner-ish.
No, if you're going for diner, that's almost
right.
a necessity.
So it's something that they didn't do like custom, but they adapted it from another thing that they do, and then they put it on these, and then the white top, and then I thought about like kids on this white top when I got it, and then that also gave me a lot of anxiety. So I'm also working through that. You know, the mugs, the whole, like, every single thing. Like,
yeah.
The chairs came from Spain. The tables came from Italy. Those fixed stools. And I will tell you, if you're out there opening a restaurant, don't ever get fixed stools. Don't do it. It's a bad fucking idea, but they look great. But don't fucking do it. But even them, like, you see how it has like the footrest on the bottom?
Yeah.
2 weeks after I chose them without a footrest, right?
Okay.
Because I put a foot railing on the bottom.
Got it. Okay.
And then 2 weeks later, the mill workers sent me a price for the foot railing, and I was appalled. And then I went back to them. I said, can I just get the footrest on the stool? And they were like, no. And then when they came, they had the footrest on them. And I was like, but I already had a foot railing. This is like the weird thing. So I took the foot railing off, and then I kept the things with the foot base. But it was just like mistakes like that.
Yeah.
That just really...
Yeah, and you're always, in a project this big, you're always going to run into shit like that.
This isn't that big, though.
No,
but this is only 2,500 square feet. There's people that build 7,000 square foot restaurants.
I know. Well, but what I'm saying is, by this big, I mean that you started from zero,
right.
And every last detail was from scratch. And yeah, you do a 7,000 foot, that's going to be multiples of these problems, but you'll still run into those problems.
But Jess, she really added the seasoning on top of this.
Right.
Like the plants, the planter up top, that shelf there that's really just for aesthetic use, the back of the bar being with tile. The tile, like, they sent that tile wrong. And the construction company wanted to use it. I said, no. I mean, that probably put us behind like a full month because I told them to go fuck themselves and I was going to wait for the right tile. Because it just matches what we're trying to do here. I mean, it was a lot of stuff like that. It was a lot of like continuation of those. You just need to stick to your guns and be like, this is what I want it to look like.
No, because then you have to live with it for however long, and
a long time.
You'll be kicking yourself.
Mm-hmm. So, but it's like equal. So, the floor. At the beginning, they were like, we want to lay concrete because there's actually a 2.25-inch depression throughout the space. So that means from the front door to the bathrooms that are in the back, there's a small slope. And you can't feel it if you're just walking into it. But you can feel it in everything else. And then they gave me a quote, and it was for like $70,000. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, this is crazy. I was like, let's just grind down this floor. Let's fucking polish it. I think I got pretty lucky because the floor is I find it pretty beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's like mixed terrazzo in strange places from who knows when. There's thrown concrete. It's just like interestingly, it looks interesting.
Yeah.
But what the depression causes is a lot of things are uneven. And they're going to be uneven forever.
Yeah.
But I had to make that call because, I mean, we saved $70,000.
Right.
And it's like things like that it's like, you're going to have to live with it. You're probably not going to like it, but you made that call, so you're going to have to make that call.
Right.
And, you know, in the process of building a restaurant, you have to, there's sacrifices you need to make for kind of, I think, the overall thing.
No, it's like anything else, right? Yeah, you have to live with it, but there are things that you can live with and things that you, clearly the tile would have bothered you more than the floor. Situation.
Yeah, I mean, the floor is going to eventually like work itself to bother me, but it'll take more time.
Like so many other things.
Yes.
So there's
correct.
That.
Something that was huge for me that I always wanted was this terrazzo countertop. The terrazzo countertop at the bar, I probably had like 30 samples of what it was supposed to look like. I think that I picked a great one. It's a little busy for what I really wanted, but it's the showpiece of like the entire space, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And in the design process, you need like some accents that really highlight the whole space. And I think that that's one, because I do really believe that this as a bar late night with food can be a thing. And I think that that's so special. And I find that so much of an afterthought, you know, like that touch, that I'm happy that we chose that. And, you know, I'm forever going to know how much that thing costs. It's always going to bother me, but it's still like, I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Even though they built it half an inch too thick, and then I had to reinforce the bar to make sure that it didn't crush the bar.
Right.
I'm still okay with it.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm happy for you.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
So you've mentioned a few times this place at night, but there's also this place in the morning,
Right.
which the night aspect, I think, is something that it brings new to the Grove.
Mm-hmm.
The morning thing, I think, is something that it enhances about the Grove already. Because the Grove in the morning is like, especially compared to other Miami areas, it's like very active with foot traffic and families and dogs and people taking their time.
I want to be frank about something. The reason why all I talk about is dinner and late night is because that's what we didn't have before.
Sure, yeah.
I know that, you know, breakfast and lunch will have its burn. Because like you said, there's so much foot traffic. There's so many families. We did it before.
Mm-hmm.
We did it pretty well before. And people loved it before. And I think that they'll love it again. Actually, now I think they're going to love it more because there's more options.
But I think they love it in a way that had been missing in the Grove. In other words, that time and that activity existed, but there's not, like, where in the Grove are you going to get croquetas and a colada? Is what I mean. Like, it brought something new in that sense to an activity and a part of that Grovite lifestyle.
Yeah.
No, not to mention the fact that people came from everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I find it incredibly intriguing that there's no, like, nod to, like, true Cuban food here. Like, Ariete is a riff off of Cuban food.
Right. Yeah, you're not
getting
Cuban
a croqueta and a colada there. You're not getting a Cuban sandwich there. So I found it very interesting being in the heart of Miami, like I guess it's the oldest neighborhood of Miami, right?
Yeah.
Oldest neighborhood of Miami, and that did not exist. I find it fascinating. So the fact that we're going to do it in this setting makes it much more Coconut Grove-like. But I think that it's needed. You know, especially if you're going to be in Miami, the heart of Miami, oldest neighborhood of Miami. Why wouldn't you have Cuban food? It's such a big part of the city as a whole.
Right. There's not much Latin food here in general.
You
Not much.
You have
some.
Jaguar.
But what I mean is, like, tradition. Like, there's not a Colombian restaurant. There's not a typical Chilean restaurant. There's not a.
Right now, when I want like a cotadito, I go to the Quick Stop.
Yeah.
That's it. That's my only option, and they do a pretty good job.
Yeah, I've had it.
So, you know, but now you can have a cortadito or a colada here.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, pretty cool. And
So-
I think that the biggest thing, too, that like we had such an issue with before was the outdoor space. And something that Jess and I discussed a lot was like how the outdoor space would evolve. Like, how is it going to be? Because you can't transfer a diner feel to outdoor. You just can't do it. It just doesn't translate well. So what were our options? And it was to make it a little more of a tropical vibe, more of like outdoor Miami space than it was to approach it like a diner. So that's going to be I think, one of the most interesting juxtapositions between this and that, because it's the same thing, but it's just delivered very differently, you know? And the same music will play, and we'll still have string lights. These will actually work.
It's an important.
That's an important thing. There will be umbrellas, which before we didn't have.
True.
So I'm intrigued to see how all that develops also, because I do, and it's not because it's ours, but I feel like this courtyard, in comparison to the rest of the Grove, is probably got the coolest feel of all of it. It just has never been executed well, because the people previously to here probably didn't have the money to. But I mean, these umbrellas, the landlords did the umbrellas, which are massive and huge and very, very expensive, was a big part of that.
Yeah. What haven't we touched on that you want to get into, if anything? Maybe you feel like we've covered all the ground you want to cover right now.
I don't know. I mean, I think I have a lot of like feelings about the space right now. There's a lot of like things that I feel great about, and I also feel like anxiety about. But it's just, this is pre-opening. This is like probably the closest to the chest ever, because I mean we're doing Cuban food, you know, like with an American touch.
Yeah.
So I feel because of who we are, we just gotta fucking nail it, man.
Yep.
I mean, you gotta nail it all the time.
Sure.
But I think I've lived in the world of area for so long, I just know that thing so well. It's interesting because like the Chug Burger is going to live here full time, forever. And I mean, it's Chug's Diner, so I felt like the Chug Burger would live here, actually on the menu, because it's not actually on the area menu.
Right.
And it was fascinating to me that I was cooking the same burger I've cooked for 6 years, just in a different kitchen, and I felt some kind of way about it.
Yeah.
I felt like, is this right? Is it off? I don't really eat burgers, and I ate one, and I'm like, is this the same? Is it going to be perceived the same? Are we nailing it the same way?
It's crazy, though, how the setting affects
For sure.
your
You
experience.
know, like, the Chug's kitchen is built like a pro kitchen, right? It's got the proper lighting, the whole thing. Ariad's kitchen is like dark because it's in the middle of the dining room. The flat top is a certain way. I know like the hot spots and like where to put things. Like the first day I cooked a burger on there, I'm like, well, this isn't right. And then I was like, well, what if I move it here? I'm like, well, that's not right either.
Have you ever seen or even done blind tastings where you're guided through shit, but you're told after the fact that lighting changed or whatever?
Never.
So there's this guy who I met, and he had been doing this a little bit with cigar companies, but also with some spirits and wines, and he was like, some of it was very, to me anyway, seemed sort of like a little over the top woo woo, like, you know, power of suggestion shit. But other things about it made some sense, where, you know, he would have you, you know, either taste 2 cigars or hear, you know, these 2 fruits or 2 cheeses or whatever, and over the course of the tasting, as he's giving you these different things, some of the lighting is changing. Maybe it's red and then it's blue, and some of the music changes. And then he would go through like, okay, well, which of these things did you prefer? And it turns out that you were eating the same thing the whole fucking time. Mm-hmm. And people had all these like very consistently varying answers. All of which is to say, I can see how the same burger in a diner setting would feel very different from sitting at Ariete, or sitting in Nave, or sitting
it's just like
sitting in the different kitchen. Or
it's a different plate, putting the fries on differently. Right. It's just a different ramekin.
There's just different shit happening in your brain while you're eating it.
And I'm just kind of like, do I feel the same about this? Is this still good?
Yeah.
Did we fuck this up? Like, a lot of that has to do with, I guess, like, personal struggles of, like, you know, you're coaching people to see a thing that you've seen for a long time. And I think that's probably one of the bigger struggles that we'll always feel, because as you grow, you have to coach people to do the things that you would do. And that's very tough, because cooking is very instinctual. Like, you just want to... What's happening?
Sorry, just got an email from Falco about our meeting tomorrow, and Monica won't be there, but she's going to Skype in, and he's going to tape an iPad to his mannequin.
John Falco, everyone. He's definitely one of a kind, that guy.
Sorry.
So, I don't know.
But I get it. I mean, yeah, there's shit happening, and you're gonna second guess. Not second guess, but
no, I second guess myself all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, simply from a design element,
right?
The most is like, did I put this in the right spot?
Right.
Should I have moved this over here? You know, something like the grab and go, which is something I've never really done. That's probably the biggest thing for me of efficiency, speed, thought process. Like,
is that the kind of thing that you went and consulted maybe another chef or restaurant operator?
I didn't. I consulted more equipment people.
Okay.
Because, so the suite that like lives there currently costed more than the entire Chug's 1.0 did to build.
Yeah.
You know, from using the Amana oven to the coffee machine to the grinders to the pastry case. I mean, the expense there is big, but it's built to, you know, it's built for speed. It's built to execute. It's built to, like, crank.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of thought process in that, like, should this go like 3 inches this way? And then when you put the equipment in, then you're like, no, but this can't work this way. Like, can we move this now? Can we move that now? And that one's tough.
Yeah.
That one's a tough one.
All right, so hard shift here.
Okay.
I'm going to wrap up the Chugs talk.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get to parting recommendations and all that stuff, there's an important development.
Okay.
In your personal life.
Aww.
Tell everybody about the Jimmy.
Oh, man. So I purchased another old car so I can continue to work on my old car.
Right.
That was the thought process here. I met a great dude in Chicago that was building a Jimmy that he wanted to sell. And I wanted a truck because the Cadillac just doesn't fit everywhere. Because it's too low to the ground.
I like how you needed a car that fit places, so I got a truck.
Right. It's a smaller truck. But super cool dude. I mean, he rebuilt a lot of it. We've had to do some work to it. But, I mean, 77 GMC Jimmy is like a great investment. And it's fawn, which isn't like a color I love, but I've learned to love a lot. And it's like, it's a fucking truck. It's pretty dope, you know? Because in reality, the Cadillac is something that we would like to continue to build. And I'm just like, I just don't like modern cars. I don't appreciate them. I don't treat them the same way. And I feel like older cars are like an incredibly good investment. I mean, if people learned about the market pretty well, it's just like, I mean, you never lose money on them. As soon as you get a car, as soon as you drive it off the lot, you lose $5,000. It's crazy. It's the nuttiest thing. It's the nuttiest money I've ever seen spent. So that Jimmy, I kind of wanted a convertible, but not a convertible also. And the whole like back end comes off of it. So it's kind of a convertible. It's half cab convertible is what it's called. And I don't know. He's a monster.
Yep.
He's a monster. Yeah. So I got a car that fits places.
Good job.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thanks.
Know where you can't go.
Mm-hmm.
And now on to our party. Well, before parting recommendations.
I don't know. Before we do parting recommendations, I mean, let's talk about the fact that we just had a Cuban guy beat Pacquiao, which no one thought he was going to win.
A Cuban guy beat Pacquiao?
No one thought Ugas was going to beat Pacquiao.
Right.
I mean, that was like...
How much of a dog was he? You know what the betting odds were?
I don't know what the betting odds were, to be
Okay.
honest. But, I mean, he had 2 weeks' notice. Former Pancon podcast guest made him his
That's
shoes.
right. Souls by Sir on
Souls
Instagram.
by Sir, Senor Marcus Rivero.
Yeah.
Made him his shoes. He was very, like, Cuban, I guess, statement-oriented in his whole outfit, which was great.
And the post-fight thing and
Yeah,
all
I
that.
mean, it was great. And, you know,
By the way, in case people are lost, by which we mean about the protest movement and the protests against the Cuban dictatorship. Mm-hmm. This guy did a lot of shouting all that out.
Yeah.
On his shoes, on his shorts, in his post-fight speech, press conferences, all that.
Yep. And I think that was great. I'm like super happy that he won. I was actually pretty shocked that he won.
Yeah.
I know Pacquiao's like old, but as a boxer, Pacquiao's a fucking legend.
Yeah.
So, and on 2 weeks' notice, that's tough to prepare for like a guy like Pacquiao. He just didn't have the juice. I mean, I watched the fight again after the fight happened. He just simply didn't have the juice. I mean, I would say that he's probably going to retire now.
Yeah. I mean, I think he said it was like 60%.
I mean, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
It's a good idea. I would recommend it because boxing is brutal. So
He's also a good singer. You can fall back on that.
I mean, he could, and he's got a thriving political career.
Yeah.
That he can fall back on.
Basketball. Plays basketball.
Pacquiao plays basketball.
He plays pro basketball in the Philippines. No, this is 100% true.
I don't.
Listen, it's pro basketball in the Philippines, so the bar is probably a little lower.
So you're saying I got a chance?
I think if you go to the Philippines, give this up for a little while. I mean, you have an 8th grade basketball MVP trophy.
I do.
That's probably more credentials than
My mom still got it.
I mean, take that over there. Let them know. They wouldn't even make you try out.
What else is happening in the world?
Oh,
we
man.
can't just like wrap it up now. Like that's too much. It was too much of a heavy podcast.
Yeah,
We need to
well,
lighten
that's the
this
thing.
shit
I'm
up.
trying to think of what else is happening in the world that's not heavy because there's
everything is heavy.
Let's not do Afghanistan.
Let's not do Afghanistan.
Let's not do that.
Let's totally skip over Afghanistan.
I wouldn't say that this is heavy or not heavy, but today, the day that we're recording this, which is the 23rd of August, the FDA gave its permanent approval to the Pfizer vaccine.
Correct.
That's a thing happening in the world. It's going to, I think, affect a lot of things depending on your perspective, for better or for worse.
Equally, the Miami Dolphins are starting their season.
How did that? You went to a preseason game?
I went to a preseason game.
How was that?
They looked pretty good.
Cool.
They looked pretty good. I was happy with what I saw.
How was Tua?
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of weapons, so that was nice to see. I think the defense is still super stout, which is great.
Yeah.
I mean, they still need a Mike linebacker, which would be amazing, but they have like some good people there, but just not amazing.
Yeah.
Sorry,
go ahead.
So I'm like a very pessimistic fan, so if they win some games, that's cool.
I was going to say also in sports, Heat made some.
The Heat have like a team. The Heat have a team that I would go into a fight with.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd go into a basketball game with them, but I'd go into a fight with them.
I'm sad. Speaking of going into fights, I'm sad that we lost Goran.
Of course. I mean, he's a Heat lifer, like, for sure. The fact that he's not on the Heat anymore hurts my feelings. I get it. It's a business at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I get that, but I mean, did he sign with someone full time?
No, trade.
Yeah, but he doesn't want to play there. He already said it.
He said it and then he took it back, but it was like, yeah, you said it.
You said it.
Yeah.
You can't take that back. I mean, no one wants to play in Toronto. I'm just if we have fans in Toronto, I didn't mean that. I'm just saying.
Oh yeah, we're huge.
Yeah,
in Toronto.
We could be.
Yeah.
We're in like 22 countries.
Bangkok Raptor.
Yeah, I guess a develop. I don't know if I'm actually allowed to talk about this, but no one like actually listens to this, right?
Nobody.
So I'm doing a show that I'm filming in 2 days.
Don't make me go back and delete this after you say it.
I have no idea. Maybe you could read the thing if I'm not supposed to say this.
Okay. Fine.
You're not going to show anything from the show.
What do you mean show anything from the show?
You're not going to show any film from the show.
In this video?
Yeah. So
No.
who cares?
Oh, no. Well, I didn't know if you were, like, not supposed to say anything.
Okay, so anyways. So a couple months ago, I was approached by someone that was recruiting for a show for the Food Network. I've been very open about how much I don't like food TV. And I was like, nah, I don't know. You know, whatever. I guess that's cool. And they were like, yeah, you know, can we set up a call and blah, blah. I said, all right, cool. We can set up a call. I said, all right. So we're setting up the show with a famous person. He can't cook. And I go, okay. I need some more context for me to say I'm even interested in the show. And then they were like, all right, so the show's with Ludacris. And those are my years, right? Yeah. Late 90s, 2000s, like Disturbing the Peace. Like, Ludacris is my guy. I'm like, so Luda can't cook. And they're like, that's actually the name of the show.
Luda can't cook.
And I'm like, so the show's called Luda Can't Cook. And he was like, yeah. I was like, I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, I guess this is fine because it sounds super fun. So, fuck it. I guess I'll say I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
So I went through the whole process. I did an interview. Actually, everyone was like great. And then, you know, they were like, we would love to have you as the co-host with Ludacris for this episode of the show. And I said, all right, I guess cool. So I'm going to co-host a show with Ludacris called Luda Can't Cook that will be on Discovery Plus and Food Network.
You got to put him on game.
I'm going to put him on game. And that films 2 days this week.
Nice.
It's going to be an experience.
So
I got to say.
Yeah.
So these people, the producer, her name is Terry. She's great. In like the first Zoom meeting that we had, I guess getting to know each other, she was like, so how do you feel about the Food Network and Discovery Plus doing a show about Cuban food during this time? I go, I got to be honest with you. I think it's the dumbest fucking thing you guys could do. And she was like, really? I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely. I was like, what's the thing that Food Network is telling you to talk about the most? And she was like, a Cuban sandwich. I'm like, you think you can get a Cuban sandwich in Cuba right now? And she was like, no, I don't think so. I go, so why the fuck would you talk about that? And she was like, yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, she was great. She was like very understanding to a lot of things that I had to say. She was very open to a lot of my ideas.
It presents opportunities, though.
I mean, it presents opportunities for us to continue to like push the knowledge about what's happening here.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, they have a script. Could you imagine me with a script? Right? It's going to be so much fun.
I'd pay for this.
Oh, man. It's going to happen. So they have a script, and I'm like, you know, I'm probably going to go off script quite a bit. And she was like, I have that feeling. You know, that's cool. And so basically, they changed the premise of the show to a show about Cuban-American food.
Okay. Because
it's food that you can get here in Miami.
Right.
Which is not Cuba. And I think it opened up the same thing about cigars. Or like, how do you feel about Cuban cigars? I go, I feel dreadful about them. I will not smoke them. I think they're absolute fucking trash. And they're like, okay, great. And, you know, so I think it's been good. I think we have an opportunity here to continue to open up people's eyes and people that would never dare listen to this podcast. Mm-hmm. To some of the things that we're trying to do.
Yep.
So we'll see how it goes.
Cool.
I mean, in the editing room, a lot of things get left on the floor that they'll never use.
Right.
Which is, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move into our parting recommendations.
We're done here? You're done with me?
Well, here's what we're going to do. We'll let everybody in on this process. We're going to do our parting recommendations. Okay. We're going to do the plugs. And then we're going to record some like after the fact ad-ish stuff.
Okay.
That I will insert.
That's great.
Earlier in the podcast. So, parting recommendations. Do you have any for the people?
I have a book that I'm reading.
Okay.
So I just started this book, The Tao of Wu, the RZA.
Okay.
And I'm only a quarter way through, and it's a very good read.
The Tao of Wu.
Yeah.
Tao spelled like T-A-O?
Yeah.
Tao of Wu. The RZA wrote this.
Yeah.
Got it.
Oh, you.
What's it about?
You could definitely tell. I mean, it's like I said. I'm only a quarter way through, and it's this really incredible journey of him understanding what the Wu is to him.
Oh man!
And like the lessons he learned, and it's really written.
It's like an autobiography, sort of.
Thus far, but it's
Right.
a lot of lessons, and it's a lot of life lessons, and like I find it very interesting how it's about a lot of religion, but his perception and his knowledge of that, and like how he's learned that, and how he puts it into practice. I find it very, very interesting, and like who has taught him his life. I mean, the guy's lived a life,
Yeah.
so I recommend it thus far, and I'm only a quarter way through.
Got it. I will recommend 2 podcasts. Actually, no, just one podcast, but I was going to make reference to 2 episodes. It's called Honestly with Barry Weiss. Barry Weiss.
Barry White?
Weiss.
Oh, Weiss.
Yeah. She sounds nothing like Barry Weiss. Barry White.
What a shame.
I know. If only. I would listen to Barry White's podcast.
I mean,
Yeah.
who wouldn't listen to Barry White's podcast?
100%. So she used to be on the editorial page at the New York Times, and then was not, and now she's got this podcast, and it's basically a lot of interviews and sort of like it's like a essay format podcast, and then sometimes interviews. So to give you an idea, the last episode I listened to was a long conversation with H.R. McMaster, who's a 3-star general, and he was talking about Afghanistan. So if you're interested in that subject, there's that. And then she did another episode where she was like collaborating sort of with Camille Foster, who runs Freethink, and another podcast called The Fifth Column, in which they do a very long interview and sort of like an investigation sort of thing with, I don't know if you remember, early in COVID, or not, before COVID, actually. This woman, Amy Cooper, who was all over the news because, you know what I'm talking about, with the dog in the...
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, so there was she had her dog off leash in Central Park and was confronted by a birder who had basically, like, they had a confrontation over her dog being off leash, and it turned into this, like, Amy Cooper is a racist thing, and she goes into hiding, and she's been in hiding in another country for I don't know how long. It's a super interesting story, and it's an interview that's really more about media and how we end up seeing stories told the way they're told. So very interesting stuff. I would recommend Honestly with Barry Weiss.
I have 2 more recommendations.
Go for it.
One of which is I saw on Netflix a documentary about ZZ Top.
Okay.
I've always loved ZZ Top, but this documentary made me love them even more. I mean, their love for classic cars is great. But their music, the evolution, like I've always listened to their music, but I never understood it until I watched that documentary, and like their thought process and them as people, like it's very, very, very interesting.
Yeah.
The melding of like that blues and jazz culture with Texas, I found fascinating. And, I mean, they're incredible musicians. I really do love that, how they say it, Tres Hombres.
Tres Hombres.
Album is fucking dope.
Yeah.
But the documentary is a really, really good watch. Okay. And they're like, I mean, they still tour.
What would you say it was called?
Fuck, man.
All right. ZZ Top documentary.
Just ZZ
Where'd you
Top
see it?
on Netflix.
Netflix, okay.
And then equally, I'd have to say that I was shocked that the Suicide Squad #2 did not suck.
Oh, it didn't suck.
No. It was actually like enjoyable to watch. It wasn't dreadful. I mean, the first one was fucking horrible. So horrible. This one watchable, fun to watch. You know, I mean, it's not like rewriting history for movies.
Yeah. How was Flula Borg in that movie? The German guy.
Flula Borg.
Yeah, he's a German actor, comedian, thick accent. I think in the movie he's German also.
Flula Borg.
Yeah, I'll show you a picture.
Show me.
Yeah, he's in the squad.
Spoiler alert: a lot of these people die early.
Right. I can imagine him dying early in this movie.
I feel like he was part of the first group of people that died.
Okay, well, yeah, I don't know.
So if he is who I think he was good. I think the most shocking thing to me was that Sylvester Stallone was in that movie. You know as who?
No.
The Shark Man.
He's the Shark Man?
He's the Shark Man.
Oh, man, that's good. Here we go.
It's a shame that you can't hear the Zamboni driving by. Yeah, he dies early. Yeah, he dies early. There's a Zamboni going by. No one can hear it, though.
Man.
I know.
What a shame.
We've reached that
point.
point.
Should we run out with the microphones?
No. No. All right, well.
So, shameless plugs.
We're doing a thing.
Well, we're going to record about the thing and then insert it earlier so people don't have to wait.
Got it.
Yeah. But do all your shameless plugs. Or just tell them it's all the things, you know?
So, go to Ariette. It's great.
I like it a lot.
It's great. We have a tasting menu, and we just added a bunch of new food that I actually just posted on my social media. Go to Nave. Reluctantly, Nave is doing the Miami Spice menu. Scapegoat and Taurus. We're looking at rolling out some great football activations for Taurus, which I think would be awesome. Scapegoat is starting to open early on the weekends, which is cool, I think, for the beach. We'll see how it works out.
Shameless plugs at Pancon Podcast on all the social media things. You can go dademag.com/Pancon Podcast. Subscribe to Pancon Podcast. Go to YouTube and subscribe to that YouTube channel. All that stuff. And with that, apologies to Petey the dog who couldn't be here. And we're out.
For everyone that just turned off as soon as they heard that Petey wasn't here, I totally understand.